So, all right, I think our guest is on the line and waiting. So let's get her on here. Is this our good friend, the one and only Miss Kennedy Noel?
It is. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing so good. I'm so glad we're finally get to talk again.
I know you're like doing this whole change. That's why I sent her an email and said, I think we need to catch up because you did a nice little, this big build up. The things were changing and change was coming, and boom, we have change.
I think that was like the best email that I've received from people who haven't like known that this change was coming. Like just getting like, I think it was 2 sentences maybe of just like, lots of things are happening. Let me know what's going on. And I was like, okay, here we go.
So, all right. So the first thing, how do you pronounce the new name? Now, this is a band name now, right?
Yes, this is the new artist name, and it is pronounced Krigare. It's a Swedish translation of the word warrior, and the reason that I chose that name in particular is my name, Kennedy, also means warrior in a Celtic translation. And so I wanted to choose a name that still felt like mine and not necessarily just like a character that I was putting on. And so I thought that this name, Krigare, was just perfect because it still was a K, and it also has the exact same meaning as my own name.
Now that you explain that, I love it even more.
Oh.
So, all right, so then you yourself now are calling yourself Krigare.
Correct, yes. It is like a full changeover. Everything has completely changed, and there is no more Kennedy Noel except for just being my own personal name.
How about that? Now, what brought this upon? Whose idea was this to do this change?
Well, it was mine, actually. This month of February marks a year of me working on the music for this project, though a year ago I didn't know that's actually what I was doing. But the first song that I had written that had kind of inspired all of this was written a year ago this month. And the sounds that had happened coming from that song was just so different than my previous EP and just kind of how I had approached music before. And it really got me kind of thinking of like, oh, okay, this is new, this is different, but it actually just feels so right. And so I just kind of sat on that one for a little bit and kept writing, and it was like every song after that, without even trying, was fitting into the same sound and the same kind of intensity that the best way to describe it is basically cinematic pop, where it's what you would hear for a movie trailer or what you hear backing an intense TV show, but yet it's still like a true song. It's not just an orchestral thing, and you can listen to it outside of having to watch a movie or whatever. So as these songs were kind of coming together, I do all of my own graphics and videos and all that. It's
nice.
Many, many hats that I wear. And as I was creating like these kind of mock-ups for an album cover or single covers and the photo shoot that I had pulled from, it was all, the photos were looking perfect to go with the music, and this whole look that had kind of changed was just fitting absolutely perfect. But then when you put the name Kennedy Noel on top of that, it was like, oh, well, that's a sweet name, but it didn't really fit with this kind of intense, like, warrior vibe of a look. And that's what got me thinking about, okay, I feel like this is musically the right step for me. And as we've talked many times before about my whole battle with cancer and that whole journey, you know, those kinds of things really do change your entire life, and they change how you approach life, and it changed my music and my voice for the better. And it's, with everything just kind of aligning up, it just felt like this was the next step that's needed to be taken, and just a step in maturity in my music, not so much just like a huge drastic change of, oh, I'm bored with what I was doing before or that wasn't working. It didn't really feel like that. It just felt more like, instead of taking baby steps towards a new direction and just constantly improving, it felt like taking a leap and kind of skipping a few steps of, oh, this is where these things need to end up now. So it's been kind
Right.
of a year-long journey getting to this point, but I'm just amazed at kind of how effortless this whole thing has become. Like, it was just one day to my mind, and now here we are, completely changing everything.
Now, you say effortless, and like even like just now when I was just putting a tweet out and I was tweeting, putting you in the tweet. I mean, you had to go through and change all that stuff from Kennedy Noel to Krigare. So I mean, there was some effort, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess effortless is making it sound a little bit easier than it really was. Yeah, it was definitely, I'd say I probably really settled on the name and the idea of changing everything back in September of last year. And so probably since September, it was like secretly going through all of my social accounts and just starting to delete stuff from 6-7 years ago, and getting all of my graphics ready and getting some of the songs ready. And the funny thing, though, is that the day that we announced the name changeover to Krigare was a complete and total accident, because I was doing all my research on having to change over Twitter handles and Instagram handles and like Facebook pages and all of that. And it's a whole ordeal getting all of that done. And I had read that for Facebook, when you edit the name of the page and then you basically press enter, it really goes more into a submission that Facebook has to approve. And so I had read that, it takes like 3 to 7 days for them to approve it, and then the name will go live. And I was like, okay, that's like 3 days minimum just to clean everything. Absolutely perfect. So we pressed enter, and then 5 minutes later, we get a notification of Kennedy Noel has changed her name to Krigare, and so did all of the other multiple fans that like all my pages got that exact same notification. So it was like running like chickens with their heads cut off in my house. And we had probably 4 people all on different computers, like erasing everything and cleaning everything up. And I had to edit that promo video that day and put it all together. And it was hectic, but it wouldn't have been me if it hadn't gone that way.
That's funny because I recently just did that. My older daughter is an artist, and we've been doing like a lot of comic book conventions and stuff like that the past year with her. Well, now my younger daughter is getting in on it, and I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to have like 2 separate pages like right now. Let me just like make one name. And I had my daughter's page already started, so I changed it from, her name is Rita Marie Ragney, so I changed it from that to the Ragney Artworks. This way they're both under the same umbrella if one can't do a show or whatever. So I changed it, and I got that exact thing. It's going to take 3 to 7 days to change. And I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't realize it was going to take that long. And then like an hour later, it went through. I'm like, oh, crap, like that didn't take long at all.
Exactly. It kind of puts you in a pickle.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. So now, once you start getting this all situated and all that, like you said, like your whole house is going crazy, helping you pull stuff off and all that. What was, the family's feelings on this change?
Well, I think you've heard me talk before that I have an amazing relationship with my parents, and my parents have guided me through all of this since I was 11. And so they're very, very involved in what I do, and they're the most supportive people in my entire life, and they're incredible. And because I started at such a young age of, starting songwriting at 11 and really taking music seriously, or as serious as an 11-year-old can take it, a lot of my previous career has been my parents guiding me through of like, maybe you should try doing this sound, or maybe like we should go in this direction rather than that direction. And so just, using their wisdom and following their guidance, and it was perfect for that time. And then when this all kind of started to come together, this is the first project that really has come solely from me. Like, this was 100% my idea, and I've kind of created all of this, and that's probably one of the best feelings, and what made it all feel like the right decision was once I felt 100% driven in this exactly, rather than like, okay, this is what I want to do, but I want to follow their directions, and, kind of being torn in half. And so I put together literally this like keynote presentation of the name change, why I'm doing it, all these graphics. And my parents didn't know that I was working on any of this. Like, I really didn't say anything. And one day I was, like, walking out the door to go somewhere, and I was like, oh, yeah, by the way, check your emails. Okay, bye. And I ran out of the room and just left because I was kind of scared. I was like, I didn't know what they were going to think or do. So I just, like, left it and ran. And then, you know, quietly walked back in the room a few hours later when I got home, and I was like, so what do you think? And then, obviously, them being so supportive, they're like, this is such a perfect decision, and we absolutely support you in it, and we love the fact that this is all you. For the first time, it really is truly all me.
I mean, just the fact that you put together a presentation for it is amazing.
Yeah, I really wanted to treat
you were selling them. You had to sell the whole idea.
Yeah, well, that's what I kind of felt like was we had, you know, I've been taking business meetings with labels and managers and publishers just kind of ever since I was 11, and so we've taken a lot of advice from a lot of different people. And in the last 2 years, probably the number one thing that I was getting as criticism is they were saying, okay, you know, you're really talented, but your image and your name and your sound don't line up. Like, it doesn't feel like a consistent brand. And, you know, you really do want to make a brand unique to yourself, as much as that sounds like, I don't know if this is the right word, but like corporating your music, which most artists are like, you know, fight the man, don't sell out and become business. But really nowadays, when you're doing it on your own, you really do have to treat it like a business, and you have to strategize, and you have to figure out, okay, what am I going to do to stand out from the rest, and how am I going to make a name for myself and solely for myself? And so going into it, you know, with years of talking to people and picking people's brains, and I have a lot of people in my life who are so much more successful than me and way above me, but they've been so generous to open their doors and say, you know, email me whenever you want, like update me on what you're doing. I want to help in any way. And so this really did feel like a business strategy and felt like it needed to be handled that way and to have a presentation of that way, because, you know, doing a name change can sometimes go over really bad, because sometimes it can be interpreted as, oh, what you were doing before wasn't working, so this is just you trying to figure out something new and see if you can make it this way. And that just really wasn't what was happening for me. And so I did treat this as a business presentation of, this is 100% me, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to do, whether you like it or not, but I want you to understand why I'm doing it, rather than just thinking that I'm just taking this random step and I don't know what I'm doing.
Right. Now, how about like longtime fans of yours? How did they take the change?
So far, everybody's been taking it really well. I think the fact that this project really is just 100% me, and really the first song that we've released, called Falling Apart, is very raw and vulnerable, and truly just emotions that have come out of my whole life experience. And I think people are understanding that, and they're feeling that too. Like, probably the number one thing that we've been hearing from people when they're watching the lyric video or they're hearing the song is they're like, I can feel the emotion in this, and it takes them on a journey, and they're like, this is what has been needing to come out of you. And that kind of support from even strangers or people who have known me forever, like, that's the best kind of satisfaction that you could want when doing a change like this.
I'll tell you what, I want to pass it over to Nick, because when you said earlier cinematic pop, he sent me an instant message, and it pretty much, he didn't say it as nice as the way you just worded it, but it was on the same wavelength. So Nick, go ahead.
Okay, I thought cinematic pop, when you look at the beginning of the EP teaser video and you put it together with the Falling Apart lyric video, and I mean this in like the best possible way, it puts me in mind of like Highlander, or when the little hobbit was singing going into battle. You know what I mean? There is sort of an epic presence to it. And that's something that people can feel and they can see. And, I totally get it.
I'm so glad that you get it. That's exactly what I want people to interpret these songs like. Is, you know, we've had to create all these new bios and try and sell it to the world as well. And the best way that I kind of tell of what my goals are in this project is to take people on a journey of battles and empowerment and emotions. And I'm so glad that, like, that's what you're feeling is you feel like, okay, this is when that person's going into battle, or this is like those emotional moments from a movie. And that's exactly what we were going for.
Absolutely, and Faye, I'm telling you, you got to check it out because there's a very sort of there's a scene in the first Highlander movie where they're just going over Scotland and Queen's playing in the background, and you just can tell, like, if you're a fan of that genre anyway, something epic is about to happen. You know what I mean? And that's the same. Anybody that's seen the movie knows what I'm talking about, but definitely.
For the record, I have seen it, so there you go.
All right.
But, you know, the one word I'm going to say Kennedy. The one word that Kennedy keeps saying to us is emotion. And I think that is truly the most important thing in music is the emotion and the emotional attachment to it. Do you feel yourself putting more into it now that this is truly your quote unquote your thing now? Compared to
Absolutely.
before? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think even just in this last year, personally, I've grown in how I can emote and how I can tell my story. And, you know, that can be kind of hard coming out of trauma is like you just kind of want to be numb, not think about it ever again, just push it aside, made it through that, don't need to ever deal with it again. But that's unfortunately not real life. And
right.
So every year that goes on, you know, you relive anniversaries and you go through new trials and you go through new experiences, and more I feel like I'm just maturing in understanding how to communicate what I'm feeling and communicate my story better. And in these songs, you know, lyrically and even in the melody, it's something that my parents have always tried to teach, but you can't teach emotion. You can't teach how to tell a story necessarily without faking it.
Sure.
And I think previous to this music, I really didn't have many life experiences to pull from. Even in the last EP, though that EP told, you know, the most tragic 2 years of my life, I still wasn't in a place to really understand the emotions of all of it and to be able to kind of feel all those emotions of all of it. And I didn't really want to open myself up to that quite as much. And
sure.
This time around, I'm getting what everybody has always told me these last years of you have to be genuine in what you're singing and you have to be able to tell the emotion of what you're singing, because if you're not, you're just singing words and people aren't going to relate to that or connect to that. And so that's probably hopefully why people are connecting to it this time, is because I am actually in a place to truly emote what's going on rather than just like faking an emotion in my voice to get a story across.
Right. Yeah. You know, that speaks volumes right there. You're not just singing the words. I think that says it all right there. And I can see it too, like even from watching the video. I mean, like Nick was saying, you can feel something's going on. And that's the way, like, when I'm watching it, like I can feel the emotion. I can see it. And you can see that it's like a whole new life that's been brought into you.
That just means so much hearing that from you guys. Like, this is exactly the response that I wanted from this project, and it means so much that you guys are responding to it exactly the way that I could have hoped and wished.
Now, how about, you said you've been meeting with, like, record companies and publishers and all that stuff for, you know, so many years now since you were a little kid. Have you met with any recently, like, since the change?
I have not, because we're still currently working on the whole album for this. Still writing, still recording. Like, I was actually in the studio today finalizing one of the songs. And I feel like I just want to get all of that together before I approach any of that. But also, you know, when you're an independent artist, you do have a lot of control over what you do and
sure.
where you can go and either how fast you can take it or how slow you can take it. And I think with this project, I do want to be strategic in how soon I maybe sign away all of that, or how soon I get involved with a label, mainly because this album EP, we still haven't really decided if it's an album or an EP. It depends on how many more songs we write. But literally in these sessions that we were writing it, we like pulled up on YouTube crazy epic cinematic movie trailers, and I would have different stories in mind from different movies, and it really was truly written for, you know, movies and television. And so we're currently working with a few different licensing companies to get them placed in movie and in TV, and maybe use that as my leverage or as what's going to be building things first, and get recognized that way before we make any other steps in the label direction.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, really, nowadays the labels don't mean as much as they used to. They really don't.
Mm-hmm. The only thing is that they are a very helpful bank, and money is good.
Exactly. Absolutely. That's exactly what they are. That's funny. Now, so what is then now the immediate plan? So you're working on new music. You don't know if it's going to be an EP or an album. Will you be releasing any more singles anytime soon, or you're going to let this one go for a little bit?
Well, we've had this one out for about a month now, and I believe we're going to release the second single either at the end of this month or the beginning of March. We already have the lyric video in place for that as well. So we have everything ready to release this next song, and we're just choosing wisely when to release it. But it's called Heights, and it's definitely a very cinematic, even more so than Falling Apart. Very unique, very different. So I'm really excited to see how people respond to this one as they're kind of seeing each song come out and understand exactly what this whole project is going to feel like.
That's awesome. Are you going to do a video for that one as well?
Say that one more time.
Are you going to do a video for that song as well?
Yeah, so we actually, it's so great how you can learn so much and do so much at home rather than having to hire out. And so one day I was just kind of brainstorming up some ideas of video content and came up with a certain one that I can't really say right now, but we ended up literally doing it that day, just upstairs in a room. We have a nice camera, we had a backdrop, we have professional lights, and we just shot it there, and it's all edited and ready to go, and it should come out shortly after we release the single.
Nice. Very, very cool. This is exciting. This is all very exciting.
It really is.
Now, how about on the health front? How's everything there? Everything's all good? I saw you were putting up pictures the other day. Like, I guess you're going through testing, annual test or something, or?
Well, so what I had posted the other day was, I think it was maybe a week ago, was World Cancer Day. And that day actually also falls on the anniversary of when I had my final radiation treatment. And so I find that it's a good day kind of to share my story. So those pictures and everything were just previous pictures of, you know, my exams and surgeries and all of that. But I have my 2-year checkup in March, and we're just still hoping for a good report and believing that it's a good report, because I know I'm feeling extremely healthy. I'm feeling the best that I've felt in a really long time, and I have no worries about how this exam is going to go.
Nice. Very, very good. Now, let me ask this. Like, before they actually declared that you did have, were you feeling different? Like, did you feel sick at all, or?
No, that's the weird thing. My cancer had no real symptoms aside from, like, typical symptoms of a teenager, like where you have mood swings or you have acne or, like, you feel tired because you're having growth spurts. Like, it was all normal kind of symptoms of just you're a teenager, get over it. But it was, you know, turned out that it was cancer in the last few years, and it was a very developed one. But I really didn't start feeling sick until they started doing the treatments and the surgeries. And actually a lot of cancer patients will tell you that as well, that you feel the most sick when you're going through the treatment.
Now, I'm in the midst of going through something right now, and I actually have to go Monday for a biopsy. So, how bad is this?
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. Well, I don't know what your biopsy is necessarily. My biopsy in particular was definitely not fun. I will tell you that. It's a very weird experience. I had to be awake for mine, and mine were needles in my neck, basically. But it's not fun whatsoever, so I do not envy you, but I wish you the best of luck in it. Hopefully it shouldn't hurt too bad. It didn't hurt necessarily too bad for me, but I wish you the best of luck in that.
Yeah, I'm cringing right now. Okay.
I know. I don't want to make it sound bad, but I also can't say much good about it. So all I can tell you is it's really a fast process. So the sooner you get over it, it'll be done.
Okay. I like that word. Fast is good. So, all right. So the new song, I have it queued up, called "Falling Apart." What truly is this? And I know it's not about me falling apart, but what is the song truly? Who's falling apart here?
So it's a very vague storyline because we wanted to kind of keep it open for anybody's story to relate to it. But it's basically kind of telling a story of either multiple people or one person who, the scenery in the story is a desert, which doesn't necessarily have to literally be a desert, but a desert signifies a dry area, a dead zone, a dead season in your life, just the worst of the worst. And so it's telling a story of people who are living in that season for so long to where they're constantly fighting and they're really getting tired at this point. But it's the internal battle of, do we keep on fighting because we know that we can get through this, or are we too tired to keep doing this, and are we just going to completely fall apart? So it really is the pre in it is, are we falling apart or together? And so it's just that internal conflict of, do you keep on going forward? Are you going to keep going together and unify with all the pain that you're both going through? Or is this just becoming too much? And do you want to give up? But the bridge kind of leaves it leaning more towards the hope aspect of it, of even if the smoke keeps on rising, we'll keep on fighting until we see the horizon. So it kind of ends in a little bit of a more hopeful turn of everything. But I did leave it open to, you can make your decision at whatever season you are in your life. If you're in a season of feeling like you're in a desert, you got to make the decision of, do you give up or do you keep fighting? Because you can make it through if you keep on fighting.
Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Nice. All right. Well, we're going to play this for everybody. Hey, Nick, any more questions for Krigare? That's it.
Yep, you got it.
No, man, I managed to be on the line the whole time this episode, so we're good. No. We got to tell her the story of how before we went on the air, we were saying about how you're coming on, and Nick was saying, this is the first time we've had her on, and I'm actually on the whole time. Usually there's something that comes up, and I'm like, and if it wasn't for you, we never even would have brought her on. And then he tells a story of how. Wait till you hear this. He tells the story of how he actually found you and presented you to me. So go ahead, Nick. How did you find Kennedy Noel before she became a Krigare? Okay, and I'll try not to give out too many specifics, but I find a lot of ways to make money, and one of them was listening to up-and-coming artists and giving feedback. And I listened to one of your songs. It popped up on my list based on similar artists, and I downloaded it and I played it, in my car when we went to California, and my daughter and me kind of bonded over it and stuff. And I told Bay, hey, you got to check this out. And it's crazy. I never would have thought, to look in a place like that, but I'm glad I did.
I'm so glad you did. This has become one of the best friendships ever.
I didn't know that at all. When he was telling me that, it blew me away. It just so weird, something like that. Exactly, formed this friendship. It's awesome.
That is incredible. And clearly, we all know now that this changeover is a good sign because you're actually able to stay on the line for the first time on one of these.
Exactly. Oh, that's awesome. Well, as always, I want to thank you for coming on, hanging out, telling us a story. We're all excited for you. And and we're going to keep talking, and we're going to get you out here to Philly. That's the goal for 2017.
Absolutely. Yes, let's do it. Thank you so much for having me. It is always such a pleasure talking to you guys.
Awesome. You too. And let's do
Absolutely.
it. Here we go. Falling Apart, Krigare. Thanks again, Kennedy.
Thank you.